Thank you so much for joining us in National Careers Week to talk about careers in fashion. We would love you to introduce yourself if possible. So obviously your name and then what you do for a job.
Hello, thank you, and thanks for having me. My name is Rachel Sheila Kan, and I am a sustainable fashion consultant and in the fashion industry and an ecosystem architect, which sounds a bit strange, but we might get onto that later on. Who knows? I have 2 decades of a career in design and design management, working with supply chains, working with whole entire teams, product life management systems and all manner of things. So from the very start, of the fruition and trend and ideation right through to the realization of that into a product that you're selling in the store. And then I moved into sustainability 7 years ago when I really did see the immensity of the overproduction that was being created in front of my very eyes. And I basically sort of did my own, PhD in sustainability and regenerative futures. And now I moved into the consultancy where creativity still is a huge part.
Absolutely. And am I right in thinking with your consultancy, you advise other people on how to go about creating sustainable kind of
Yeah.
clothing, things like that?
So I
Okay.
either work with startups and help them to start up strong in sustainability and in, creating a brand from nothing, or I work with small to medium-sized companies who want to transition into sustainability and into the corporate now, where the larger businesses are starting to come to us as well. So it can be transitional or it can be fruition. Sometimes it's reporting or basically looking into what's going on in their supply chain and really trying to quantify and qualify what it is that's happening. So it's very, very broad what I do now.
Sounds like it can be very technical as well. There sounds like there might be some numbers on a spreadsheet going on
Oh,
there.
absolutely. Creativity is not always just about drawing pretty pictures. And in the fashion industry, in particular, when I was a designer, you kind of have to know about how this is going to how your picture or how your design is going to be realized in real life, in a 3D you have a 3D thing. You have to know like how to sew it together, how you're going to get that on and off. And I think one of the first things I did kids wear for 10 years. So the constant thing was, how are you going to get that over the kids' head? Kids' heads are like, sorry, kids' heads are bigger than their body. They're quite big. So you have to okay, have you got the net stretch there? So, and then technically into each of the fabrics, is that going to last? Is it durable? Is checking out the dye on that, is it going to run? And there's so many technical aspects just in the ideation and the making of a garment as it is, let alone the sustainability aspects of it. So.
Fascinating. I mean, I know that there are so many students watching whose minds will already be blown slightly by the idea that there are so many technical things in the process. Like you were saying, it's not just drawing pretty pictures all the time. But also, I think learning about the consultancy bit is interesting too, because lots of people don't know that being a consultant, literally being paid to advise people on how to do best practice because you've been through it all yourself, that is a job in itself. So that is really interesting. So let's talk about your career journey, starting a little bit further back at school. So you grew up in Stoke, is that right? Stoke-on-Trent?
Stoke-on-Trent, yes.
And you were telling me earlier about the fact that you kind of stumbled into fashion by chance and you were
Yeah.
very
Literally, I was like in the school hall, and I was going around all of these little stands that they had. There's like one for chefing, for kind of like that kind of thing, one for sciences, one for something else. I can't even remember. I was so bored. I was like, no, this is not for me. And I think there was a college there, Stoke-on-Trent College, was sharing some of their the courses that they had, and there happened to be a BTEC course in fashion. And I'm from a very tiny village in Stoke-on-Trent, and at that time 25 years ago there wasn't even it wasn't even a thing like that you'd go and be a fashion designer. That's weird, you know. So a lot of people in the village were like, what are you doing that for? Why don't you go work down the pop bank or something, or get in the shop or something like that? But no, it was totally like innate to me, because my mother was a painter and painted the faces on Dalton figures, which is from the potteries industry. My dad was an upholsterer, and my nan taught us to sew and to knit and to kind of like feel in that 3D way. So it was only natural that it would be interesting to us. So my sister actually went and did theatre, costume design and things like that as well. So it runs in the family.
Absolutely. Fashion in many different types of industries in many different types of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's so many things you could do. Like my sister ended up like making big animal costumes, like trigger happy TV things and stuff. These kids won't probably know what that is, but you know, big pudsey bears and things like that.
That's really cool. Oh my gosh, the number of mad props at her house must be insane.
Yeah.
Okay, so you discovered fashion was a thing that you could go and do. So you went off to go and do it. What were your first steps into the industry?
I did a BTEC, then I went and did a BA honours in fashion. Again, I was the first person in my whole entire family to go to university. That wasn't even a thing back then. Yeah, and then just like after that, it was like through tutors that I got my first jobs in kids wear, and so on and so forth. And you know, I would say, don't expect it to be exactly what you think it's going to be. You know, when I went in there, it wasn't just about, as I said, creating pretty pictures. That's important to create a product of value that the customer will interact with, but there was other things to think about. You know, commerciality. You couldn't just go off and design whatever willy-nilly. Price, you know, we had to design within a price point, you know, again. So we couldn't always use the finest fabrics. You know, we had to work within what we had in terms of the price point to get the best quality that we could within that. So you're constantly designing towards a margin, towards a customer, and each brand has a different customer profile, or what I call customer avatar. You know, where you're taking, you might not be able to do whatever you want because you have to design towards a certain person or a certain set of people and things like that. So and now I suppose moving into sustainability, we're designing now around you know, the future of sustainability and a way that's going towards, you know, relocalizing and creating new old industries, you know. So
Absolutely. So talk to us about that sustainability, that transition over from, you know, being your own kind of business, the fashion designer business, through to sustainability. So you recognize that was the future, and then you decided to pivot as an individual, start pursuing a career path there.
So it was very much like kind of, it was kind of like starting again or renewing, I suppose. My mother had passed away, and I thought, well, actually, I'd always been interested in it. But I just thought, well, I'm just a designer. What can I do? You know, and when she passed away, I was like, right, no, I can do something in this. I can be something in this. I can stand for it. And it was that, and then also going into the supply chain, seeing the immensity of it all. You know, I go over to Guangzhou in China, and you would have mall size places that would have like tiny little shops with the tiny little fabrications that you know, your swatches that you can go and have a look at. I knew behind every swatch there was rolls upon rolls of, you know, cheap fabric, you know, just sitting there, waiting for people to come and make stuff that we don't need. And it was like, I felt sick to design. I said, I can't design anymore. And I built up over time. I just got super curious, like I did when I started designing or started my design journey. I just got super curious, went out and found everything out that I could about sustainability, not only in fashion, but into industry, because sustainability is about how everything interlocks, you know, not just in one industry, not just in one brand, but into industries as well. So it's so fascinating because it is very much about systems. And when we talk about systems, we talk about like, you know, the economic system, the systems of fashion, the social systems, the governmental system, politics, that kind of thing. We have to reinvent the way that we systemically do everything. And that to me was the biggest revelation and the most creative thoughts that I could start having about it. So I went out there and taught myself, met a whole bunch of people, and I would say to anyone building their career, networking, meeting people and learning from them as well is just as important as any book. Books are great. I love them. You know, like I've got them coming out of my ear holes. You know, I don't love them. But the connections that I have, not only for educational purposes, but also for, you know, they come and listen to you because they've known you either from the past journey or through your sustainability journey. It's the best thing that you'll ever have. It's better than any recruitment agency. It's better than any, you know, anything else, any job page or whatever you go on. Relatability, meeting people, it has been the best thing throughout my career. Like I've only ever had 2 jobs come to me from recruitment agencies. Everything else have come by referral, 100%.
Amazing. And actually, you know, speaking of obviously thinking about your future in terms of if I was a young person, like the young people watching, start networking now. And also, would you say follow, if you do want to get into fashion, follow a career path in sustainable fashion? That is the future. Is that not right? Yeah.
Absolutely. This is sustainably localized, regenerative fashion is the future. I'm working with one company called Contemporary Hempery, who are growing fields of hemp and creating completely new fabrics out of that, completely locally grown in the UK, created, woven, and created for UK consumption with UK designers, you know. So this is exciting stuff that will be the part of the new future, the new economies that we have. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's so interesting. Also, like that in itself is a job. Like that's an area of fashion. Like growing materials is actually an area of fashion. I think it's fascinating to think beyond kind of the realms of not just, but, you know, being a fashion designer, there are all the supply chains that you need to think about. And if you are going into sustainable fashion, which you should be, like, you could be growing hemp, you could be growing, you know, all of bamboo, like all of these other things, all of these amazing sustainable materials. And that's just such a small part of that kind of new, exciting world that's just going to grow. And
you got to see that the world is not always now about specialism. There is that specialism thing. We can go right into it. I could go right into loads of, I could give you case studies of 1,000 businesses right now who are doing amazing things, but also having that ability to be able to zoom out to the macro and really see how these things are interlocking. My systems brain loves it. Like if anyone's out there, a systems brain, get into that, because that is key to the future of our world. And I think if I left anyone with anything, it is to rebalance the way we look at things. That the economic situation is always at the moment such a big thing that overarches everything, but actually we need to balance that with people and planet equally as much as possible. And yeah, that is what I'll kind of leave you with. I don't know how much time we've got.
Oh, I love that. No, well, that is, you know, it's the future of every industry, including the creative industry, sustainability.